is Why Are We Here? Another piece related to that piece, In Transit, and it's a figure that flies around me. You know, I'm building these things as I go along. I had some ideas in my mind. I put some imagery down and thought, and it shifted. Initially, I thought of this guy with the shovel, and I wanted everything in these figures to be related to that shovel. And somebody could plant a tree or dig a well or something, and that sort of got lost. I was going to have somebody carrying a body that you could bury. And this figure was always sort of a stand-in for the artist. You can see a little brush on there. But it was also an artist firefighter or something. I don't know quite what was happening. And eventually I decided that in the big painting I would shift the figure and just have an artist be very direct with it. But this one developed into, you know, I guess some thoughts about existence and what we're doing on our planet. This is the oldest painting in the exhibition. The Colonel's Daughter. I had been in a book about reclining nudes about this time. It was great. It was, you know, all these old masters and me and Lucian Freud and a couple other people. So, you know, but looking through that book, it had hundreds of images of throughout history of the reclining nude, and it just sort of inspired this. Built up little scenarios in my head. All of these, I sort of hope people come into. You're led down a path of possibilities, and then hopefully they all open up into something else. So, you know, whatever happened to the Colonel's Daughter, you don't know. You know, was it consensual or not, or did anything happen? You don't know. But the possibilities are all there. And then these guys out in the back, and one with a gun, yelling into the canyon. You don't know quite what's going on, and I certainly won't tell you.
Because you don't know.
I used to live in Echo Park. I lived there for 20 years. And the last couple of years that I was there, my next door neighbor was an aerialist, both he and his wife actually. And they used to practice out back and you know, be quite nonchalant. They'd be on whatever they were doing. They'd be on tight ropes or you know, swinging around in rigs in the air. And they'd have friends over, and everybody be ignoring them. They'd just be drinking. Man, this is pretty amazing. You know, these very skilled artists in a way, and nobody pays any attention. So I think that's a good metaphor. So, you know, there's all these people who aren't paying attention, or you know, looking at their phones. Seems pretty common these days. The cute kid, you know, is always you know, much more interesting than the artist. The artist ignored, walking along his chosen path, I guess. And this one is me, my daughter, her friends here. This guy, Merlin, who's with this group, Air Realistic, and his wife, and that actually is his kid. So all people, the background's invented. Echo Park didn't look like that, and probably never will. Although the trees are pretty close. This piece over here is Susie Q, based on Susanna and the Elders, the idea of that. There's also a Titian painting called The Assumption of the Virgin, which has a bunch of mortals looking up as the Virgin ascends to heaven. She's going into a circle, and there's this sort of triangle that points up toward that. And so some of that painting's in my head. It's got egg tempera in it, too. It's got some straight oil painting, but also mixed in with some egg tempera and glazing, which, like I say, I learned in Vienna. But that's what gives the color the pop. So it's underneath some of that green, and it just glows out. It's in some of these figures down here, too. A little bit in the lighting. But it's that egg tempera that really makes it glow. I don't always use it, but when I really want something to jump out at you, I'll do that. And of course, green next to red jumps pretty strongly.
Question: Did you pose the model for that?
This is the same model that's on. I guess I should talk about that painting too. It's on this horse. She posed for me for both of these at the same time, photographically, and I knew that I was going to be doing them both. So she was amazing. Brought her to the studio, and she had muscles where I didn't know people even had muscles. She could do a one-hand handstand on top of a flagpole and do the splits. So she's pretty amazing. So this was the counterpiece, the dark horse, and I thought, a woman galloping through the snow, naked. What would the opposite of that be? Black woman on a white horse in the tropics and the thunderstorm. You know, the same sense of danger. She's not going to freeze to death, but she might be struck by lightning. But both of them are smiling. So there's a little twist in there that changes the things around a little bit. I enjoyed, getting the lightning in and trying to get the lighting on the plants. It's all invented. So. And the big painting here in the back, I will finish here in the gallery. It is 7 by 12 feet. I started it in the studio. It's been live streamed on the internet. So every stroke I've made so far has been live. I tried to record a little bit each day. So there are 16 recordings. I've worked 16 days on it. And I will finish it hopefully here in the gallery. If not, then I'll take it back to the studio and finish it there. But I know it's coming on to it, so I should be able to work on it pretty fast. I work on one at a time. Yeah. So this is it now. I have no idea what my next painting is. I haven't the slightest clue. Maybe I burned it all out of me and have to recover for a year now. So.
Scott, a couple of questions. One is that the exhibition is called In Transit.
Yep.
I understand that here. Could you talk about In Transit as relates to the other work?
Well, in transit, I guess, is sort of an idea about mortality and traveling through life, and so all of these somehow relate to that. I'm no spring chicken anymore. I'm not that old either, but at 56, you're sort of aware of things that I wasn't aware of at 46 or at 36. So a lot of that comes up in the paintings, and I just thought in transit, I'm traveling through life here, and that's what this is.
Another question is, there's in your past work, and particularly in this body of work, a lot of art history references. What's
I know a lot of art history. It just comes up, it bubbles up. I have always looked at paintings and loved looking at paintings. And going through Europe, I looked at millions of paintings, probably. I don't know how many. I mean, every little town I went into the church. If they had a museum, I went to that. So I saw lots and lots of images, and some of them stick. Some of them you don't know that they stuck and they bubble up later.
Yeah, some of them I find are very present or overt, like the Las Meninas or the Frida Kahlo. And then this one is really subtle, but when you say what it is, then it really comes through, like Courbet's Bonjour, Monsieur Courbet.
Yeah.
Quite interesting, but then to switch it into a contemporary context.
Yeah, I don't try to do that. It just happens sometimes. I'm not copying any specific artist, or I'll steal from anybody that's dead pretty happily. But
I would say homage versus stealing. I mean,
it doesn't matter what you call it.
It's
stealing.
There's a lot of homage.
But doesn't every artist do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just better when they're dead.
I would say every artist does that except the 20th century artists. Do a lot of abstraction, so there's not a lot of quotes, where this is just rife with quotes, which is very sort of. I have another question. Your images are really compelling. They're really dynamic. They're very forceful when you. So I'm wondering about this rich mind that you have. Where do these images surface? I mean, yes, the girl on the horse, you found references for it. And how does the image originally come up in your head?
Well, Peter Zukoski was just quoted in Huffington Post talking about me as it's a salad bar.
Oh, okay.
I've got a salad bar up here, a mental salad bar. I don't know. The images just pop into my head generally. I can't say, unless it specifically comes from an art historical painting, which sometimes it's inspired by that. The image pops in my head. When they don't, I have a way of doing it. I have like 10,000 photographs that I've collected, mostly from Der Spiegel back in the 70s and 80s when I was living in Austria. And I can just start going through that, and I'll sort through 1,000 images or something and put aside anything that interests me. And then I look at those after I've sorted through it, and I'll group those. And out of that, I can get 1, 2, 3 paintings. But that's rare. I mean, usually just, the wave popped in, this popped in. I can look at it in retrospect and say, oh, Titian's Assumption of the Virgin, that's pretty clear. But the image popped in first, and I later said, oh, it's Titian. But I didn't think of it that way.
You didn't think of it from Titian to the present.
Yeah, and like this one I'm building from little crappy drawings. I have, I just started it. I had no sketches really, and just started working on it. And it works out.
So this is different than in your early work where you did do drawings and did do finished drawings and then do the painting.
There are some advantages in getting older. And one is all that prep work is sort of internalized. So,
so you're not doing a lot of drawing on the surface before you're painting at this stage?
Well, I sketch out. You can see this arm is in the wrong place, and I move that. So I've always outlined and then painted it. So,
but you're not doing it with pencil. You're doing
no. I've never done it with pencil anywhere on a canvas. But I'm not drawing sketches out about the composition as much as I used to. So I guess I just don't need to.
That's remarkable from the standpoint of the scale shifts in this painting, which are incredible. The large scale here and the small here.
And it was something that I considered and thought about, because normally a painter would set all that back so it's not such a big scale shift. You put it all